Hey, deep divers, don't forget to hit that like button and smash subscribe. And let's jump into a deep dive, shall we, into the world of Kathy Griffin.
Oh, yeah.
This comedian's comeback is fascinating, to say the least.
Absolutely.
She's, been through the fire, faced the backlash, and now she's back on tour. And we are unpacking her recent interview where she gets real about what it takes to rebuild a career after controversy.
Yeah, and you know what's really striking about this interview is how she connects her current tour, My Life, on the PTSD list to, her experiences, including that infamous photo from 2017.
Okay, so turning trauma into comedy gold.
Right.
Classic Kathy
Yeah,
Griffin,
right.
right? But it's not just about Trump, though, right?
Right.
In the interview, she talks about being diagnosed with complex PTSD, and it's clear she's grappling with the layers of that experience.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think, for anyone following her career because, Griffin has this incredible track record.
Yeah, she does.
She holds the Guinness World Record for most stand-up specials by any comedian, like, ever. Yet she's claiming to be blacklisted.
Hold up, blacklisted.
Yeah.
So we're talking about cancel culture here. For those who haven't heard the term, it's the idea of boycotting someone for their actions or words.
Right. And Griffin is using her platform to call out what she sees as a double standard in the industry.
Okay.
She points to male comedians like Dave Chappelle and Ricky Gervais who've also faced huge controversies but continue to land specials.
So is it about the content of the jokes, or is there something else at play here?
Well, Griffin doesn't hold back. She even names Warner Bros. Discovery CEO David Zaslav, who's publicly supported Trump, and basically asks, would he ever give her a special?
Well, she's not afraid to stir the pot.
No, she is not.
It makes you wonder, though, is there a gendered element to all of this? Is Hollywood more forgiving of men who push the boundaries?
That's a question worth exploring.
For sure.
Griffin also brings up ageism, pointing out that she's a 63-year-old woman in an industry obsessed with youth.
Mm-hmm.
So is it cancel culture, a double standard, ageism, or a combination of all three?
Right.
It's complex.
It really is. And here's where it gets really interesting. Griffin says she'd do a special for free, just for the love of the game.
Exactly. This is a woman who is passionate about her craft, and she's determined to get back on stage.
Yeah.
And get this, her new show isn't even about Trump.
Oh, really?
She's done with that.
Okay.
This one dives into something much more personal.
Okay. Spill the tea. What are you talking about?
She's opening up about her struggles with addiction, even a suicide attempt. Now, this is where her comedic style really shines. She takes these dark, heavy subjects and finds a way to make them funny by sharing her experience, her unique way of dealing with it all.
It's like she's saying, yeah, this happened, it was awful, but here's how I'm finding the humor in it. But not everyone's laughing, though. She even tells this story about a man who stopped the show during one of her performances, yelled, "Suicide isn't funny."
Talk about a tough crowd.
I know, right?
But instead of shutting him down, Griffin actually engages with him. She explains that she's not making light of suicide itself, but using humor to process her own experience.
That's such a Kathy Griffin move. Bold, unexpected, and willing to have those tough conversations. But is it working? Is her comeback truly on a pressic? Stay tuned as we unpack the rest of this interview and try to figure out what it all means. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel and let us know your thoughts in the comments.
And what's fascinating is this man's outburst becomes like a key part of Griffin's narrative.
Oh, wow.
It highlights that fine line that comedians walk when they're tackling sensitive topics.
Yeah, you're right. It's like this meta commentary on the whole point of her show.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's using humor to destigmatize difficult subjects, but it's clearly a risky move.
And she acknowledges that she talks about how some of her past jokes, of things that she thought were funny years ago now, make her cringe.
Wow.
It shows a willingness to evolve, I think,
Yeah.
to recognize that humor can be hurtful even when it's not intended to be.
Right, so she's owning her past mistakes, which is something we don't always see from celebrities.
Yeah.
But let's get back to this double standard she's calling out. She specifically mentions how male comedians seem to get away with saying things that would get a woman canceled in a heartbeat.
This is where it gets into this larger conversation about gender and comedy.
Right.
Are we holding men and women to different standards?
Exactly.
It's a question a lot of people are asking these days.
And Griffin isn't afraid to jump right into that debate.
No.
She's putting it out there, forcing us to confront these uncomfortable truths about the industry.
But it's not just about, pointing fingers.
Right.
She also talks about how she's been called out for offensive jokes in the past. Instead of getting defensive, she says she's learned from those experiences and tries to be more mindful now.
So it's about growth, about taking responsibility for your words and actions, but it's also about acknowledging that context matters.
Yeah.
What might have been considered funny 10 years ago might be completely unacceptable today.
And this is where I think Griffin's self-awareness comes in.
Okay.
She owns her D-list persona,
Hmm.
this over-the-top, sometimes crass character she's created.
Right. So she's using that persona to explore these difficult topics, but she's also making it clear that she's making fun of herself.
Exactly.
Her own way of handling things, not the issues themselves.
Yeah, it's a subtle distinction,
It is.
but it's important.
It is.
It allows her to address sensitive subjects without necessarily endorsing or trivializing them.
Okay, so we've talked about the double standard,
Yeah.
her comedic style, and her willingness to be vulnerable. But where does all this leave her comeback? Is she uncanceled?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's too early to say.
Okay.
But what's clear is that she's not giving up. She's fighting to get back in the game.
Yeah.
And she's using this tour to redefine what it means to be Kathy Griffin in 2024.
She's definitely sending a message. She's back. She's
Yeah.
bold, and she's not afraid to make you think.
Yeah.
Now, we've covered a lot of ground here, but there's one more point we need to address. Does sharing difficult experiences through comedy make them more accessible, or does it risk trivializing them?
Yeah.
It's a tricky question, and one that's worth pondering as we wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah, it's a question that goes right to the heart of, Griffin's comedic style and, frankly, the power of humor itself.
Right.
Can laughter help us process trauma, both our own and that of others?
That's what's so fascinating about this whole comeback.
Yeah.
Griffin isn't shying away from the tough stuff.
Right.
She's leaning into it using her signature blend
Yeah.
of self-deprecation and social commentary to spark a conversation.
And it's a conversation that's resonating. People are talking about her new show, debating its merits, and ultimately grappling with these really important questions about how we deal with trauma
Right.
in a culture that often wants to just brush it under the rug.
It's interesting because she's not just talking about her personal experiences.
Mhm.
She's also connecting it to the larger political landscape.
Mm.
She talks about how the Trump era and its aftermath has created a kind of collective trauma for many people.
Right. And she's positioning herself as someone who's not afraid to, name that trauma, to talk about it openly and honestly, even if it makes people uncomfortable.
And that's what makes her such a compelling figure. She's not perfect.
Yeah.
She's made mistakes,
Right.
but she's willing to own them and use her platform to have these difficult conversations.
And let's be honest, not everyone's going to agree with her approach.
Right.
Some people will find it offensive, some will find it cathartic.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the power art, isn't it? It provokes, it challenges, it makes us think.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Kathy Griffin's comeback,
Yeah.
what are the key takeaways for you, our listeners?
Well, first of all, it's a reminder that cancel culture isn't always a death sentence. People can evolve, they can learn from their mistakes, and they can find their way back into the public eye.
It's also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Griffin has been through a lot, both personally and professionally.
Oh, yeah.
But she's still standing. She's still fighting for her place in the world, and she's doing it on her own terms.
And finally, it's a challenge to all of us to think critically about how we use humor, how we talk about trauma, and how we engage with those who hold different views than our own.
So there you have it, Deep Divers, a glimpse into the world of Kathy Griffin, her controversial past, her defiant present, and her uncertain future. What do you think? Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious.